Connecting your ECS EC2 instance with Coralogix is very, very simple. Now, there are lots of steps in this documentation that involve actually creating the ECS cluster and so on. I'm going to avoid that today and just assume you have an existing ECS infrastructure as I do now. However, it's really easy, and actually the tutorial will give you a full run through of how to create the ECS cluster, set up the key pair for SSH, and much, much more. But we're going to skip a little bit of this. We're going to go straight down to here. So what we're going to do is deploy OpenTelemetry to our ECS cluster using a Coralogix built CloudFormation template. You can inspect this CloudFormation template. There's nothing very Coralogix specific in there. We just add some parameters and some configuration. It's designed to make things easier for you, not designed to create any vendor lock-in or anything like that. So the first thing we can do is decide how we're going to deploy this. So we recommend a CloudFormation template, but actually if you can just get OTel running in your cluster, that will work just fine. So I already have my ECS cluster here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run through CloudFormation, and instead of using the command line like I normally would, I'm going to do it in the UI, mostly because it's a very visual experience. I think it'll work well and really make it clear what you need to do. So in order to do this, we're just going to go over to services. We're going to look for CloudFormation. So now there's not much going on in this account. There's just an ECS cluster and actually the CloudFormation I deployed to create that. So we're going to create a stack. That's the first thing we're going to do. With new resources is what the option I'm going to choose. Now, in order to get a hold of the CloudFormation template, really easy. This link here. So if we where we are, we scroll down a little bit, we get to this section here, deploy this CloudFormation template. You open this up, this will give you a GitHub repository. The GitHub repository is full of information around different tools you can use, different ways you can configure this, where the logs are pulled from, how to configure traces and metrics and so on. I'm going to focus on the easy stuff today, which is just like logs and metrics. This is kind of the happy path deployment today for this video. There's lots and lots of different ways of doing it. You can do it in the UI, you can do it in the command line. You can also deploy custom configurations for OpenTelemetry as well if you want, and it explains how to do that in some detail. We're just going to deploy the simple out-of-the-box version. So in order to do this, we get a hold of the template YAML here. Now, because of the way the AWS UI is, I can't just paste it in. So I've actually saved this file locally. But you can take a look at this file. It's really straightforward. It's only a few resources that get created. So upload a template file, choose the file. You can see I have my layout here. I have template.yaml. I'm going to open this up. Automatically it gets parsed. If I want, I can actually view it in the designer and see which resources get made. In fact, let's have a quick look now. So we open up the CloudFormation designer. Of course, it doesn't land on the right place, but we can see here that we actually create an ECS service that is powered by an ECS task definition, and another one as well. So really, really simple. This is not a complex piece of infrastructure at all. And here's the template for it. Now, here's what we do. So we hit next. It's going to ask us for some details. So we'll go over the stack name first. I'm going to call this my OTel CX stack. Call it whatever you want, what's most appropriate for your naming conventions. Now, there are some mandatory fields that you have to add. So I'm going to return back to the documentation quickly. This c.image version is easy to get a hold of. At the top of the documentation, we mentioned this image here. You want to look for this link. Tags can be found here. This will give you all the latest versions of the image that's going to be deployed into your cluster. So here we go, Coralogix repo, OTel collector. Now the latest one at the moment, at the time of making this video, is v0.2.0. I would recommend not doing latest. Latest isn't always updated. It actually says explicitly in the documentation, you should always, you must explicitly select a version tag. So pin to a version is the safest way of doing it anyway. So I'm going to take this particular value here. I'm going to go back to CloudFormation, and that's my first thing. My cluster name is the name of the cluster that I originally created. I've called mine CX Chris Cluster. You can call it whatever you like. The Coralogix region. Now, they have some options here. The way you find this out, we go back to the documentation. You want to look for region, Coralogix region. You open this up. You will see a table that explains which region you're actually in. Now, the way you know this, the easiest way to know this is here. So I'm on an empty account that I have here. The URL is out of shot, but if you look at your URL, look for the pattern that matches. So for example, mine is the team name.coralogix.com. That means I'm in Europe. Europe 1. Really, really easy. Look for team.app.coralogix.us. That's US 1. Team.app.coralogix.in. There's India, Mumbai. So just look for the URL pattern for your Coralogix instance. That will tell you what region you're in. Now, I'm in EU1, Europe. So I'm going to go back to my AWS here, Europe. My default application name, I have to set that. I'm going to call this, I don't know, ECS OTel deployment. Something like that, nice and easy. That's all I really need to set, except one extra field down here, the private key. Now, you're going to see my private key, but rest assured I'm going to delete it after I make this video. The way to get private keys, go to your Coralogix instance, data flow, and API keys. Down here, you see a bunch of options here. We want to send your data key. That's what we want. So I'm going to hit new key. I'm going to call this my OTel ECS key. Always good to separate your keys to manage any sort of key breaches. You can copy this value here. Go back to your CloudFormation and paste it in. And click next. So now we have a key. We've had all this. Now, there are lots and lots of different options here for setting IAM roles for your ECS instances. This isn't a tutorial on CloudFormation, so I'm going to skip over this. But there's lots and lots and lots of options here. I'm just going to skip over this because it's not necessary for the deployments here. And now you can see image version, cluster name, cluster region, see all the values that we've set. You can also see some of the things like the default memory. So it's 256 megabytes. This will be fine for simple deployments like this. But as your ECS cluster scales and this application has to do more, then of course you're going to find that you're going to be busier and therefore more memory, more usage, that kind of thing, more utilization. So we scroll all the way down here and we hit submit. So what's going to happen now is the CX stack is going to deploy. This is going to take a minute, so I'm actually just going to skip this video because I have no control over how long this CloudFormation stack takes to deploy in AWS. It should take a minute or two at most, especially in an empty ECS cluster. So I'm just going to stop here and then I will jump to when it's deployed and we can explore the data that's being produced. Okay, so I've hit refresh on the AWS CloudFormation stack. I can see that everything is created and the stack says create complete. That means the deployment has been successful. There's no guarantee that it's all working, of course, but that indicates that it's all been deployed correctly. So if I jump over to the dashboard here in Coralogix, I see something here. The logs volume only just starts to jump up in the past couple of seconds, which is great. So I'm going to go to the Explore screen and hit logs and see what we've got. So we've generated some logs already, amazing. So we've seen a little spike in logs. This is what you'll see if your system isn't generating any other logs. Remember, I have no other applications deployed in ECS. So if I open this up, I can see some really cool information actually. The account ID, the availability zone, all this gets decorated automatically, which is really, really, really nice. This is perfect, by the way, for generating metrics because you have all the labels that you need. But any of the body messages get logged out. So this here, for example, we could run through log parsing now. There's lots and lots we could do now. We have this data ingested into Coralogix. Remember, any new service we ingest, automatically those logs are going to be ingested into Coralogix. So that was just a basic run through using CloudFormation for how to install OpenTelemetry and connect it to Coralogix using some of the Coralogix convenience automation we've made. Remember, this is just a wrapper around open source technology, so you're not really falling into vendor lock-in or anything. We're just helping to speed things up for you.